Do you know that feeling? You're lying in bed at 2 a.m., actually ready for your well-deserved sleep, but your brain has spontaneously decided to host a late-night talk show. Tonight's topic: how will I survive retirement when a single scoop of ice cream now costs nearly $3? Your mind projects countless scenarios onto the inner screen that will likely never happen. Do you know what's truly paradoxical? Some of the most intelligent, sensitive, and emotionally attentive people you will ever meet are often the ones who are the most exhausted. And it's not because they're digging in the garden or working too hard physically, but simply because they think too much. This is exactly where the psychological paradox reveals itself. The very cognitive habit that makes a person so considerate, prudent, and deeply empathetic is precisely the same habit that quietly drains them from the inside out. So let's look at what's actually happening upstairs, why we do it, and what it really says about our character. Let's start directly with what's going on in our brain. Science has a terribly clunky term for this pattern: dysfunctional rumination, or in plain English, constant unproductive brooding. It is the stubborn tendency of our mind to ride the same endless carousel of thought loops over and over again. This happens especially when things are uncertain or when it involves human interaction. Large studies from renowned universities have repeatedly shown that people who brood so intensely don't do it because they are mentally weak or naturally fearful. They do it because their brain is an absolute master at recognizing patterns. It scans the environment like a tireless radar screen, processing stimuli nonstop and always searching for the deeper meaning behind things. The problem, therefore, isn't a lack of intelligence. The problem is that this high-performance machine never receives the signal to simply pull the plug. Neurologically speaking, this leads us to the executive suite of our brain, the prefrontal cortex. This area is responsible for complex planning, razor-sharp analysis, and constant self-reflection. In people who overthink everything, this executive suite simply never clocks out. While you might want to comfortably watch a movie on the sofa, the so-called default mode network, essentially the brain's constant background operating system, is running at full speed in the background. The result is a mind that is basically on air 24 hours a day. A mind that hums like an engine at idle, constantly drafting answers to conflicts that haven't even occurred yet. What's particularly fascinating is that this pattern usually doesn't start in advanced age, such as when retirement approaches. For a shockingly large number of chronic overthinkers, this habit begins in early childhood or youth. Very often, this happens in environments where family routines seemed unpredictable or even threatening. Imagine a child growing up in a household where the parent's mood could change lightning fast and without warning, perhaps due to high stress or harsh living conditions. If small mistakes suddenly resulted in disproportionately severe punishments, the young brain derived a completely logical survival strategy from it: become a weather forecaster of emotions. Always think ahead. Read the mood in the room before anyone has even taken off their jacket. If you can predict where the storm is brewing, you can protect yourself. In this light, overthinking is absolutely not a mistake. It is a conscious, life-saving adaptation. Your clever nervous system is simply doing exactly what it was trained hard to do for years. But wait, not all thinking is the same. Psychology distinguishes between two completely different types here. The first type is reflective rumination. This is like looking into an inner mirror to understand yourself better. You process your own emotions, such as grief over a loss or a new beginning in life, and make sense of the world. When this happens in a healthy balance, it is a true strength. Such people have high emotional intelligence and know themselves incredibly well. They are often the best advisors for their friends. The second type, however, is brooding rumination. This isn't a reflection. It's more like staring incessantly at a coffee stain on your shirt until it burns a hole in the fabric without ever getting water and soap. It is passive and extremely agonizing. You chew on problems for hours, such as the fear of rising prices or a mistake from school days, without getting even a millimeter closer to a solution. Here, the excessive thinking becomes a real burden. You sleep poorly, you can hardly make decisions in old age, or you avoid people because even a short chat at the checkout is later ruthlessly dissected in your head. The catch is that most overthinkers constantly slide back and forth between these two types. A valuable moment of inner reflection can almost invisibly tip into a rapid, dark downward spiral. Why is it then so damn hard for us to just say stop? Because thinking feels incredibly productive. Since the head is smoking and working, you often don't even notice that you aren't solving anything. Psychologists affectionately call this the illusion of mental progress. Your mind feels important because it is seemingly solving a great puzzle, but in reality, it is just running frantically like a hamster in a wheel. And here, nature's greatest trick comes into play, the hormone dopamine. Your brain repeatedly releases small amounts of this reward substance during problem solving. The crazy thing is, this happens even with a completely imagined problem-solving session. So if you're lying in bed constructing the perfect dialogue for the next argument with the handyman, analyzing every angle and building the best arguments, your brain pats itself on the shoulder and rewards you with dopamine, not for achieving something real, but simply for the pure activity of thinking. That's why it's completely useless when someone says to you, "Oh, just don't worry so much." Your brain has a massive chemical incentive to keep going indefinitely, like someone who can't stop pulling the lever on a slot machine. What does this pattern really say about you? Research holds a nice surprise here. A major study from 2013 came to a clear conclusion. People who brood a lot have extremely high levels of cognitive empathy. This is the rare and precious ability to accurately sense and predict how other people think or feel. Such individuals are like human antennas. They receive the finest social signals, know exactly what weight spoken words carry, and immediately sense when the atmosphere at a family gathering is tense, long before the first loud word is spoken. The very engine that makes brooding so exhausting is the same superpower that makes these people so perceptive, compassionate, and special. But being constantly on reception without the plug ever being pulled makes you terribly tired. This is the oppressive life of the overthinker. They simply notice everything. They feel the weight of all the world's possibilities on their shoulders. And paradoxically, the more intensely they think, the harder it becomes to find true inner clarity. Right here lies a quiet life wisdom. Our mind simply cannot think its way out of every problem. Some things in life must be felt. Some things must be decided courageously without knowing all the facts. And many things must simply be let go because you cannot repair them in your head. Therefore, therapists today no longer try to forcibly suppress circling thoughts. Instead, they try much more to change our attitude toward these thoughts. An exciting concept for this is called cognitive diffusion, the defusing of thoughts. This means learning to observe difficult thoughts simply from a distance without letting yourself be consumed by them. Imagine you are sitting on a bench at a train station. Your negative thoughts are trains pulling in. You see them. You read the destination on the display board, catastrophe and end of the world. But instead of panicking and getting on to ride along, you simply stay seated and say to yourself, "Oh, look, my brain is producing the worry train again. Best regards, but I'm not riding along today." This small change in perspective works wonders. It no longer pulls you completely into the fear, but gives you that saving distance you need to breathe. When we look at all of this, one thing becomes crystal clear. Thinking too much is not a personal flaw. It is absolutely no proof that you are crazy, weak, or unstable. At its core, it shows a brilliant, high-performance mind that simply learned very early to stay vigilant in a world that once felt unsafe. Our task today is not to shut down this great mind or to condemn it. The true challenge consists of gently stroking its head like a loyal but somewhat overexcited guard dog and patiently explaining to it, "Hey, the danger's over. You're allowed to relax now." We all carry old patterns within us, shaped by life experiences we never chose. Understanding why we tick this way might not extinguish the circling thoughts immediately like a push of a button, but it takes away their eerie power over our lives. And very often, this loving understanding is the very first liberating step into a calmer life. Speaking of brilliant, high-performance minds, that's exactly where we'll pick up next time. We're going to look at a completely different but equally fascinating group: the psychology of people with an extremely high IQ. Does an above-average intellect actually make life automatically easier and happier? Or does such enormous intelligence bring its own completely unexpected hurdles in everyday life? Why absolute geniuses sometimes feel chronically misunderstood, and what their world really looks like from the inside. You'll find out in the next video. Stay tuned and see you next time. If this exploration changed the way you look at the weeds of overthinking in your mind, please subscribe and like the channel. We are excavating the history and psychology that they tried to bury. Let's plant the seeds for a better future. The next treasure chest of insights will open soon.